That's not burning up. I had to change the battery. I don't know what this is. Make sure it ain't no adult stuff. I don't order adult stuff. Oh, I thought it was a book, y'all. But this is not a book. This is I get this every month. Forbidden rice, jackfruit stew. I just store them. That's a bunch of jackfruit stew. Because y'all know I'm about to go complete vegan. I am. But I get it. I've got a bunch of it, you know. A lot. Maybe I shouldn't say it on here, but I'm not worried. So I've got, because I keep white rice in case, like, say if something happened and I'm here, I can make people like rice and peas and corn just to survive food with butter fat. And I eat this. I've got so much though. I got big bags of Mahatma Jasmine's rice, like big bags. But because I'm going to go vegan here pretty soon, I'll be eating all these different things, and you know, I thought it was a book because I ordered a book about that big. So I mean, it's kind of soon, but yeah. I was like, oh, I got a book. I'll open the book for you guys. So no, not a book. So I shared that with you. Let's go ahead and get into reading. I keep forgetting I got a remote on my TV, on my phone, and I use that for volume and everything. And I always had it. I go driving with my remote in my pocket. I don't know. I listen to a lot of music. Like I have music downstairs on the same channel up here playing the same music, and you know, it's really nice. People walk by. That music's so beautiful. Okay. So how's everybody doing? Hope everybody's sober, sound mind, not all jacked up. Let me. I was putting little things on my eyeglasses. I was supposed to have another eye appointment, and I don't know. I'm just not trusting a lot of stuff, and for good reasons. People are blind in their ambitions in this world. People are still greedy, and they don't know why they're greedy. And we're not going to worry about that. Though I mentioned, I know some of you kind of weak in that department. Know it might affect your cortisol way of thinking. I hope not. So let me see where I put it at. Oh yeah, I put it right up here. We're gonna read just a little bit of Iron Republic. I want to get to the other books though. I'll pull this up. Y'all know like Roanoke, Virginia, Roanoke, Florida. Have any of y'all ever heard of Roanoke, Honduras? I've been there. Back in the day, most people spoke English, no Spanish. The elders, my age and older, still speak English. A lot of people don't speak Spanish. And when you go there, you'll meet people that look like they're Spanish. Like me out here, people like think I'm this guy named Diego. I'm like, no. Now if you say Jaime, all right, Yetzer, you know, like James, you know, like in Yiddish, I'll be like, oh, but a lot of people here think I'm Spanish. I'm like, no, that's a foreign. That's if you call yourself Spanish or Latin, you're not of this soil. Some people do that because they feel like it's a title or something. No, just Spaniards, when they went there, so-called conquered the land by way of the Vatican in England, we know the British, you know, supposedly showed up there first, whatever. Because I told you they killed everybody on the Easter Island. They took the rest of the inhabitants, slaves, back over there and brought them over here, South America, to work. POWs or whatever you call them. There's a number of places down. There's a number of places not. Let me stop saying down in South America. It is not down. On our brothers and sisters towards south, outward. I've been there a long time ago. I would love to go back. I want to go to Costa Rica too. The thing is, I like to be able to have my firearms. But it's really, really beautiful. Floods though in the wintertime, it rains all the time. Floods. I can't be. I got to be way above sea level. I got to be at least 500 feet up, y'all. But it's beautiful. And I was sitting there going, I wonder if anybody ever heard of them places. You know, they've got Mayan buildings and stuff like that. Olmec, like seriously, most people know nothing about it. Yeah, and the place is fabuloso. I mean, it's magnificent. From when I went, it was just unbelievable. It's very, very touristic. So look into that. Roanoke. A friend of mine said he was watching somebody and they was talking about it. I was like, yeah, that place is wonderful, man. That's like, I mean, we know we have the cartels and them doing their stuff close to the border, but most of the time they don't bother with you. Like they used to kill and get on a lot of Haitian pirates, like really, like real, and innocent ones got murdered. You never hear the media, this fake government here talking about it because I told you we got idiots in our government, in this government, not mine, not mine. And the government that some of y'all still believe in. It's fictional government. They're nothing but actors and characters. And you got some real people in there, but you can't. I mean, if they were to be known, they'd probably be suicided or dead. So until this thing changes hats and the perverseness, because when we say freedom of speech, nobody can trump on that. Whatever, like we're going to read here, whatever William Cooper was finding that the Ashkenazis were setting up and doing with these idiots, these sociopaths, because you get desensitized. You see enough death. People look at me and think that I'm desensitized. No, it just doesn't bother me. I see a head in the middle of the street. And whose head is it? And what'd they do? I hope it wasn't nobody innocent. And a lot of time it is. It doesn't bother me. Not at all. Did someone say that's desensitized? No, I move beyond the scope of that. It's grotesque. It's not nice. It's violent. It's no good. It's not helpful or healthy. It shows how dead individuals are. And when people get caught, they resign themselves, but at that last moment, they realize, what did I do? And it's always got to be the same thing with these individuals. And they have literally lobotomized themselves and created their own little prison. And they're unaware of it. They're always worried about getting locked up, being pulled away from it. But the prison they go to is not a prison. The life they live is a prison. And you would think, well, why doesn't any of them join together and turn on it? Well, because there's greed. There's a want for something they can't have. And they feel it's safer because you don't know who to trust. See, we need our community back where we trust one another, where it's not even questioned. All right? Let's see. I wanted to say, let me look at it right quick, make sure. I don't want to speak wrong. So we have 2 more new subscribers. I want to welcome you all to the tribe and I appreciate you guys. We're going to get a little reading in. All right, we're not going to be a long time because I actually want to lay down. I got a good 7.5 hours of sleep. I want to get about 2 more. Let's go ahead into the Iron Republic. Let's get right into it. Yeah, I went and checked the mail. This lady goes, "Hey, Diego. I look at her like, this is, hey, Diego. I was like, no, mommy. No, Diego. Oh, okay. No, Diego. She was looking at me like, no, Diego. No. Don't walk up too close, then I'm starting to think something. She goes, you look just like Diego. Diego who? When she said his whole name, I was like, no, man. I'm definitely not from California either. And she was talking about Texas. I was like, oh, I guess there's somebody named Diego that looks like me. Cool. The world's very small. The enemy's created is very small. So anyway, I thought that would be funny. I would share that with y'all. Diego. That's so cute. Okay. It's pretty hot today. I'm probably end up closing the windows and turning the AC on, but I want to go outside in the sun some more. I really like being outside. You know what I mean? I really, really enjoy it. Let's bring this a little closer because I don't need to see all that. All right. I'll get into this reading. The lights on. I got to change the battery in that too. I'm sweating a little bit. Some people say, what'd you get a head on your head for? Because it's not on yours. I can be something, right? All right. Let's make sure. Yeah. Oh, yeah. It's going to get good here. I want to see that picture too again. Where's that picture at? Yeah. Wow. Yeah. Okay. All right, here we go. Oh, it's highlighted. I read ahead a little bit. Just wanted to see something again. So this Iron Republic, edited by C.J. Austin. So I edited because it's supposed to be based on the character I showed you the picture of. It's supposed to be based on him, his life. Okay, and I highlighted that too. Remembrance. Okay, you ready? Here we go. All the newly, there you go. Really good read. So we're going to read a little bit of this, not a whole lot today. All the newly elected bodies meet on the first day of January and organize, and the new Senate from the whole number of ex-senators in the Republic choose a new president. The primary elections occur annually, and remember, anybody could become, okay? The Commonwealth elections biannually and the provincial and presidential elections quadrennially, the terms of office being respectively 1, 2, and 4 years. A citizen is, by virtue of his seal, a citizen of the first grade. After he has served as magistrate, he is in the second grade. After serving as deputy in the provincial assembly, he is a franklin of the third grade, and when he has been elected national senator, he advances to the fourth grade. Remember, we were reading this, we were talking about who can go into office, and the terms and all that, all that good stuff. And it's from the so-called lowest to the highest of recognition as far as talents. All right. After he has served as president, he has no grade at all, having no longer the right to vote or participate in any election. No citizen is eligible to the same office more than once, and after serving in any of the capacities mentioned, becomes eligible to the next office above and holds that grade if he does not go higher until he reaches the age limit, which is 60 years for the first grade and 70 for the others. So we got a serious issue with these things. As with the exercise of the franchise in America, some of our citizens never contest for any office, having no desire for public life and it being entirely optional with them. When a man is out of office, he is only a private citizen, having no advantage over any other franklin in the Republic, except merely his eligibility in common with all others of his grade. That's like Obama talking about the Second Amendment, or this cardinal in Newark, New Jersey, talking about, to so-called righteous, just do away with the Second Amendment. All of them need to get gone. They need to leave. That fake pope, that pervert in that Tartarian building I used to visit on a frequent every other day, he needs to go. Obama needs to shut up and stay with his husband, or whatever you want to call him. All right? All of them do. And whenever you see they bring all the presidents together, that's to keep you brainwashed and delusional. None one of them mean anything. Okay, the tragedies, the wars, the vilification, the perversions, as the puppets they are, have created on my ancestral soil is done. Anyway, except merely his eligibility in common with all others of his grade, to the office next above the one he has held. Retiring presidents are an exception, as by virtue of having held every office under the state, they are considered preeminently qualified and become life members of the Supreme Cabinet, which body is composed of ex-presidents chosen for distinguished ability and appointed by the incoming president with the approval of the Senate. Now, this Supreme Cabinet serves as an advisory council to the president and as a national board of arbitration to which is referred all vexed questions of internal administration. It is the highest authority in the Republic, and by its sanction, the president has the right to veto. And can you conceive of any scheme of government simpler than this? As my friend, our financial, judicial, and penal systems are just as simple and satisfactory, but we have not time to go into them now. Now, the scheme certainly possesses the merit of simplicity, and as I replied, and yet it is not possible, probable, extremely probably, that a controlling majority in these legislative bodies may be wholly incapable of framing suitable laws for a great state. My observation has been that men are egotistical and obstinate in the proportion that they are incompetent. And a majority of such men, it seems to me, would not only fail to legislate wisely, but would prevent capable minority from doing so. Check that out. My dear sir, exclaimed the professor, you have not yet grasped the first principles of legislation in this great country. It is not the exclusive function of any of these legislative bodies to originate legislation. They may indeed devise and propose laws, but they have no power to enact any whatever for the government of the people. Here is where the elective franchise comes in. As every law, itching, whether proposed by the National Senate for the Republic or the Provincial Assembly for the province or the Commonwealth Council for the local government or of the primaries, must be referred to the people and its acceptance or rejection determined by their vote. Wise measures of public policy are originated for the most part by scholars and publicists, and when they are elaborated and perfected by public discussion, they are properly framed and submitted to the people in the appellate elections. It is the appeal to the people for an expression of their will on the subject, and the people may take the initiative and compel legislative bodies to propose laws. This is a prerogative, though, that is never exercised. For legislators, knowing the alternative, are always willing to propose any legislation demanded by their constituents. You want to bear in mind that there are no political parties here, such as you have in America. Consequently, though, there is not the vindictive strife and party feeling that you have there either. There are no questions of personal ambition or party expediency to be considered, and no motive to swerve any legislator from the most absolutely unselfish efforts for the public weal. There's nothing wrong with going back and listening to what I've read. Okay, you may do so at any time, obviously. And we're going to leave that right there and get right into an original history of ancient America. Let's mark that. I'm going to highlight that. Highlight that part right there. It's excellent. Put that bracket around that. That is excellent. I'm going to have to do a little research on that. I like the way that moves. Would I ever run here? Of course. If we get away from the stupidity of this foolishness we're dealing with now with so-called capitalists and all that dumb stuff based on a democracy, because this is not a democracy, and people have a hard time dealing with the reality of that. Especially the people who get living a certain lifestyle, smoking $200 cigars and walking around drinking certain cognac or whiskey. Like that's something. Oh yeah, needs a little more lime. And yes, I read the whole book within the last 4 or 5 nights. This is one of the books I want to sleep on, y'all. I'm gonna have to do a real excerpt on that one. So here we go. George Jones, Original History of Ancient America. It's a couple of paragraphs. Keep y'all new. Bring you back up to the roll of things. Okay. When we last left off, we were talking about Egypt was the neighbor of the Tyrian and consequently imparted her knowledge through the commercial communion. All this is letting you know that this is ancient. This is ancient Rome. This is ancient Greece. Right here is everything. The phonetics of it. They divided everything. They made you believe they're on the outskirts of everything. And those places were only like a post office, a drop-off, a P.O. box, And even though the things existed, because the world was protected and we were the heart of it. That's why these people are doing the retarded stuff. Charles Schwab and all these fake little Zionist, Nazi, whatever terms they want to use. All right. They believe they've conquered you. And you have yet to be conquered. I would love to see some of you snap about your little slumber, your little daisy of a sleep. And a lot of people who consider themselves bad and this, that, and other, they're your brothers. But I'm talking about blood brothers. It doesn't matter what you think in the world of fiction you live in, created by the division and strife and hate that you alluded to. I am telling you, there's even a bunch of pale skins running around who are your blood kinfolk. I'm talking O positive and O negative. Just because you haven't met them or you didn't sit down and ask the proper question, because it is alluded to enlightening you to this fact. It is a fact, regardless of what the idiots out there preponderantly are speaking and pushing. Okay. The inhabitants of Tyrus, from their small locality, for example, the island, were essentially a practical people. They had no space to build idle or useless edifices, like those of Egypt. They had no captives. The Tyrians were, of all people of the ancient world, best adapted to imitate what was of utility and stability. Thence, their selecting pyramidal bases as foundations for their temples in America, and which have preserved those edifices and the judgment of the builders, even to this day, through a period of time beyond 2,000 years, way beyond it, if not hundreds of thousands. It also evinced that acuteness and skill is in applying means to ends, for which as a nation they were so renowned. In section 3 of the Analogies, we will establish from scriptural history the early architecture as to its style, mind you, of the ancient Tyrians. The ruins in ancient America, and by that term we mean anterior to the rediscovery by Columbus, do indeed stand alone. A new order to the modern eye they may be, but over 2,000 years ago, the order might have been termed the Egypto-Tyrians. And reason, Tyrians, pay attention, and reason, research, and analogies of religious and national customs will prove that name now given to this newly discovered ancient order is correct, and that the moderns may not only repeat the term, but even aid the science of architecture by the application of the rules and principles of utility and solidity now discovered in the Western Hemisphere. We know this is the East, we know this is Asia Superior. And what cracks me up is these idiots running around talking about we deciphered the Egyptian and Sumerian text and the original Aramaic and cuneiform. They didn't decipher nothing. They've been lying from the rooter to the tutor. They haven't deciphered not a friggin' thing. They wrote in their fake world history, and they keep you from seeking inside yourself the truth of these narratives because you're a pundit of the lies and the delusions by these sociopaths. Challenge me on it. I would love to see one of the little scholars come on here and challenge me. I would like to see Sanetta's little gay dude with the glasses and all the little garb challenge me instead of sitting there talking to all these little goofies who don't really know nothing. I'd love to see that chump come. The Ma'at and all that other stuff, don't even know what he's talking about. It cracks me up every time I see this guy open his pie hole. And he cracks me up, he really does. So Greek, booty rob, smart. He doesn't know nothing. Jabbery, or Gabbery, or Goober Goober, whatever you want to call him. I call him a damn sweetheart. Arthur Kessler, the 13th tribe. The starting a new discovery about the true ancestry of the Ashkenazi people, I'm not calling them Jewish, it will cause a stir. Mr. John Barkman's reviews, as he states. Let's get right on in. The 13th century was a period of partial recovery. We hear for the first time of Ashkenazis in regions adjacent to the Rhineland, the Palatinate, AD 1225, Freiburg 1230, and Ulm 1243, Heidelberg 1255, etc. But it was to be only a short respite, for the 14th century brought new disasters to Franco-German Jewry. The first catastrophe was the expulsion of all Jews from the royal domains of Philip le Bel, and France had been suffering from an economic crisis to the usual accompaniments of debased currency and social unrest. And you know, that's what they brought. They brought that here, right? Philip tried to remedy it by the habitual method of soaking the Ashkenazis, and he exacted from them Payments of 100,000 livres in 1292, 215,000 livres in 1295, and 1299, 1302, and 1305. Then decided on a radical remedy for his ailing finances on June 21st, 1306. He signed a secret order to arrest all Ashkenazis in his kingdom on a given day, confiscate their property, and expel them from the country. Hence, you have the so-called, what am I talking about, people? Templars, to tempt the temples, to betray, to raise them, to means to destroy them. In order to hide themselves, they had to make a fake history, right? Create the movies. Have you all drooling over these guys with these big crosses on their checks and the Tartarian mesh that can raise energy. Oh, you didn't think about that, huh? You hear all these people talking about it. Oh, I got a whole lot more. The arrests were carried out on July 22nd and the expulsion of a few weeks later. The refugees immigrated into regions of France outside of the king's domain, province, Burgundy, Aquitaine, and a few other feudal fiefs. But according to Mises, there are no, that sounds like one of them cartoons, Mises, get. There are no historical records whatsoever to indicate that German Jewry increased its numbers through the sufferings of the Ashkenazi community in France. In this decisive period of its destruction, and no historian has ever suggested that French Jews trekked across Germany into Poland, either on that occasion or at any other time, but we know previous they had. They went there and got rid of the original people there. Under Philip's successors, there were some partial recalls of Ashkenazis in 1315 and 1350, but they could not undo the damage, not prevent renewed outbursts of mob persecution. By the end of the 14th century, France, like England, was virtually Judaism. Yeah, England, France. You know we found Europe, right? Settled it, too. So you see what happened there, right? The second catastrophe of that disastrous century was the Black Death, which between 1348 and 1350 killed off a third of Europe's population. I wonder who they were. And you're looking at it right now with all these man-made drugs. And in some regions, even 2/3, it came from East Asia via Turkestan. Who was running that? When we talk about the Ashkenazis, what about the Qadars, their cousins? And the way it was let loose on Europe and what it did there, symbolic to the lunacy of man. A Tartar leader named Janibeg in 1347 was besieging the town of Kaffa, now Feodosia, in the Crimea, then a Genoese trading port. The plague was rampant in Janibeg's army, so he catapulted the corpses of infected victims into the town, whose population became infected in its turn. Genoese ships carried the rats and the deadly fleas westward into the Mediterranean ports, from where they spread inland. He wanted some get back to destroy these bastards. It backfired too. The bacilli of Pastoris Pestis were not supposed to make a distinction between the various denominations, yet Jews were nevertheless singled out for special treatment. After being accused earlier on of the ritual slaughter of Christian children, they were now accused of poisoning the wells to spread the Black Death. The legend traveled faster even than the rats, and the consequence was the burning of Ashkenazis en masse all over Europe. Once more, suicide by mutual self-immolation became a common expedient to avoid being burnt alive. Now, we're looking at the time. We remember the coup d'etat going back to the 6th or whatever century it was, 3-something to 6-something. And we look at now. Well, we know that our people still exist. So when he makes a statement, who are we talking about? The real ones, or the half-breeds, or the fake ones? The decimated population of Western Europe did not reach again its pre-plague level until the 16th century. As for Ashkenazis or Jews who had been exposed to the twofold attack of rats and men Only a fraction survived, as Kutsera wrote. The populace avenged on them the cruel blows of destiny and set upon those whom the plague had spared with fire and sword. When the epidemics receded, Germany, according to contemporary historians, was left virtually without Jews. We are led to conclude that in Germany itself, we're talking about the Moors. We're still talking about the melanated people of Germany. We're not talking about these fictional beasts you see walking around there now. Be mindful of the time period and remember this. Was left virtually without Jews. We are led to conclude that in Germany itself, the Jews could not prosper and were never able to establish large and populous communities. How then, in these circumstances, should they have been able to lay the foundation in Poland of a mass population so dense that it presents, and we're talking about 1909, mind you, go figure. It outnumbers the Jews of Germany at the rate of 10 to 1. It is indeed difficult to understand how the idea ever gained ground that the Eastern Jews represent immigrants from the West, and especially from Germany. Yet, next to the First Crusade, the Black Death is most frequently invoked by historians as the Deus ex machina, which created Eastern Jewry. And just as in the case of the Crusades, there is not a shred of evidence for this imaginary exodus. Hello. On the contrary, the indications are that the Jews' only hope of survival on this, as on that earlier occasions, was to stick together and seek shelter in some fortified place or less hostile surroundings in the vicinity. There is only one case of an immigration in the Black Death period mentioned in Mises. Jews from Spartus took refuge from persecution in Hildeburg, about 10 miles away. And after the virtual extermination of the old Jewish communities in France and Germany in the wake of the Black Death, they knew who brought it in. Western European remained Judenrein, excuse me. I don't know why I didn't know that word. For a couple of centuries, with only a few enclaves vegetating on. Except in Spain, it was an entirely different stock of Jews who founded the modern communities of England, France, and Holland in the 16th and 17th centuries. The Sephardim Spanish Jews, Sephardic, okay, for y'all that don't know what I'm saying, Spanish Jews forced to flee from Spain where they had been resident for more than a millennium. Their history and the history of modern European Jewry lies outside the scope of this book. Yeah, he doesn't have all that information. And Moors, I wish people would stop using that term, Moors. These Negroes are starting to sound so phonetically stupid. They were seafarers. Our people were great seafarers all over, obviously. We may safely conclude that the traditional idea of a mass exodus of Western Jewry from the Rhineland to Poland, all across Germany, a hostile Julius Glacius, is historically unintendable. It is incompatible with the small size of Rhenish communities, that reluctance to branch out from the Rhine Valley towards the east, and their stereotyped behavior in adversity, and the absence of references to migratory movements in contemporary chronicles. Further evidence for this view is provided by linguistics, to be discussed in Chapter 7, to which we will be getting into tomorrow. And I hope y'all enjoyed that little read. I'm going to put an asterisk right there because I'm going to hold on to that one part. Put a little bracket around this. Excuse me, people. Yeah, look into some more of this right here. I have another book that I can pull some excerpts to further give greater detail. I'm going to highlight something right quick. Quite a bit. I do this. My apologies. Let's get right back into it. Okay. Behold up, hell horse. William E. Cooper. Oh yeah. And you know where we left off last time? Where we was at, which gave me just 2 working days to submit any further motion in a 10-day period before the time starts running to the appeal. And you know what he was working on as far as the 6th of October and all that, the dismissals and all that other stuff. He was not he was not expressed a dismissal, but certain Ashkenazi government or sellout agencies within this U.S. corporation, which has nothing to do with our land, because we are the Americans of old and the true, or the Republic of Tartaria. I'm tired of even using the word America. They've just perverted it so vainly. Anyway, what I have just said regarding the federal courts in Houston is not only my opinion. The Houston Chronicle, surprisingly, published an extensive document severely criticizing the federal courts in Houston for making up their own rules as they go along with the proceedings, like the ATF's doing right now. Rule don't mean shit. Okay? Not allowed. It doesn't matter what agency, corporate ideology, narrative. Okay? As well as commenting on the communist-like Supreme Court attitude of the judges and the court personnel, my experience here has been that the court has returned to me almost every document that I have filed. Then after a glib argument, they re-accept the document, stating that they just made a mistake. In reality, the power structure doesn't want these types of cases in any federal court. Now, summary of evidence. We go here and we state on the 8th of October, I had submitted a request for finding the facts in the filing for which had been established by the evidence presented. 1. The 300th Military Police POW Command is located at Livonia, Michigan. That sounds like somewhere out of Russia. Number 2, the Department of the Army has, stated that said command exists per se the Geneva Convention of 1949, a treaty of the United States in Article 4 thereof under the title relative to the treatment of prisoners of war and protection of civilian persons. Now, mind y'all, this is page 147, HR 4079 and FEMA, Chapter 6, okay, for those who have a book or reading along. Number 3, however, no such title exists in the Geneva Convention per se. Number 4, nevertheless, there are separate titles, one of which is multilateral protection of war victims and prisoners of war. Multilateral protection of war, that's A, and this is B, multilateral protections of war victims, civilians, persons. Make that make sense, right? Pretty sick. Nevertheless, Articles 4 of both titles, now while that's going on, your children are being raped, molested, sacrificed, whatever craziness they do, experimented on. Anyway, nevertheless, Article 4 of both titles does not provide for the creation of any military programs for concentration camps. Whether Mr. Fennerin of the 300th Military Police POW Command has stated that the purpose of the command is for the detention of foreign prisoners of war and enemies of the United States. Now, I guess we're enemies because we know that the United States has nothing to do with this land. It was one governed sovereignty, a republic, and they came and created all this bull. Further, number 7, Articles 3 concerning civilian persons makes the treaty applicable to conflicts occurring solely within the territory of the United States that are not of an international character, which is capable of including any type of conflict in its description, whether it be civil war or guerrilla activity or anything else. The text itself, I'm sure pages are sticking, excuse me guys, states, in case of armed conflict not of an international character occurring in the territory of one of the high contracting parties, each party to a conflict shall be bound to apply to the minimum of the following provisions. Number 8, Department of the Army Field Manual, FM 4110, Civil Affairs Operations of Civil Affairs Organization lists as one of its functions and the assumption of full or partial executive, legislative, and judicial authority over a country or an area, and there is no specific exclusion of the United States as such a country or area. Number 9, said manual defines country along certain geographical population basis, country, state, regions, and national government. Number 10, said organizations, meaning organization has, in fact, conducted practice takeovers of local and state governments in the continental United States, including but not limited to the state of New Jersey. Number 11, said organization includes in its study outline on page J24 a section on concentration camps and labor camps. Number 12, said organization includes in its operations compositive service operations and psychological operations organizations. Number 13, said psychological operation working with the United States Public Health Services is prepared to operate any and or all mental health facilities in the United States as tools of repression against outspoken but nonviolent political conduct of the United States citizens in conjunction with all the above, which is to be used for the same purposes as you see with music, Hollywood individuals. And you see there's always some Ashkenazi fake philanthropist or some fake Jew who's always thinking. You see what they did with Ye. You see what they did with some of these comedians who got into the Hollywood, right? Went to them parties, running around with Jamie Foxx butt naked and all that, and P. Diddy's chump self. Anyway, 14, further, the Department of Justice, in conjunction with the program, has had plans for the suspension of writ of habeas corpus since the year of 1946. Said plan depriving persons being detained under this total program any means for protection against tyrannical political repression. The plaintiff requested that the court make findings of fact and draw conclusions of law consistent therewith as shown by the evidence on record before the court. Now, the effect of this request is that the case must go back to the district judge for further consideration, and I mentioned that it appeared that all this planning for concentration camps was to be directed against anyone, regardless of his political persuasion or ideology, who exercised freedom of speech against the established power structure of international bankers and multinational corporations, but with Proposition 13 type movements threatening to reduce taxes throughout our nation. I foresee an activation of emergency programs so that the parasites in the federal take will continue to receive their checks. He called them parasites. Woo. So next we'll get Price and Patriotism movie next. Wow. Woo. Holy smack. Wow, that's a mouthful, right? Yeah, look at some of the things on this. I do. Anyway. Remember, we're just reading these books. Regardless of my statements, you got to do your own research too. Depends on what you see as well. Okay? Yeah. DNA of the Gods, the Anunnaki creation of Eve, and the alien battle for humanity. Chris H. Hardy. And people ask, why you read this? Some people send me some messages. I said, I think it's pertinent to the reality of the possibility that's plausible for something. Does it mean that in lieu of what's going on? First of all, going back. These idiots didn't have the knowledge to do what they're doing. And it had to be grafted and slow process. And most of the history that people know is purely a fantasy, a lie, most whimsical at best. Oh, I mean to the utmost. A lie. Way it's been played out and told? No, man. Totally on the opposite paradigm. It's totally the genetic engineering of the Adamic humanity. Now that we have my apologies. Now that we have a clear understanding of the psychological profile of our ancestor gods and of their deeds, as well as our own unconscious baggage as a species being created from Anunnaki DNA and reared as kids by them, like cattle, okay? Let's take a closer look at the process of creation and its unfolding. Now, Carl Jung speaks of a paradoxical God image full of internal contradictions, and many experts in the field of psychology, whether or not biblical scholars, have stressed the deep impact of the creation story on our collective unconscious. So let me introduce you first to this field of research. Now, psychological and critical biblical studies. The burden that has befallen humanity through the specific rendering of what Sitchin calls the creation tale of the book of Genesis is not, in his view, solely a matter of being condensed and edited versions of original Sumerian texts, which, in brackets, were no primitive myths but depositories of advanced scientific knowledge with which modern scholars are only now beginning to catch up. And that's in Wars 109. And I actually have Wars up here. I brought it up because I was actually reading something in it. Yeah, I'm surrounded by books, guys. This is what I do. Yeah. It's in this one. Why he ain't reading that one with this one? Shut up. When I read this one, I will read this one again. That way you have a clearer understanding. I know what I'm doing. You do what you're doing on that side. This is the beauty of it all. Because unfair judgments and attributions of responsibility to earth humans were made. The basic fabric of the human psyche in monotheistic cultures was undeniably warped towards self-culpability and anxiety, and in total contrast, the top gods were given a blank check, and even their shameful deeds became misrepresented and absolved. And consequently, in the long run, their true nature was forgotten and idolized. The psychologists and psychoanalysts' critical approach to the biblical scriptures has stressed how much the wrathful and vengeful temper of the deity and the repeated unjust condemnations and punishments imposed on humanity have been an everlasting cause of guilt and anxiety, running deep in our collective unconscious. And see, for example, Freud, Jung, Fodor, Fromm, Bottoms, Bruns, Ellens, and Rollins. And we know about Bruns and Bottoms and Fromm. Please, if you don't, you need to read. Freud, for one, saw in God the projection of the despotic father, the very cause of the process of repression, creating the superego. That is the self-destructive, and self-restricting, internalized tyrannical authority. Now, see Freud's totem and taboo. Totem and taboo. Totem and taboo. And also the works of Biet Halami and Argal. For Eric Fromm, man, in brackets, projects the best he has onto God and thus impoverishes himself. Listen to this. Man projects the best he has onto God and thus impoverishes himself. You rob yourself doing that, people. What of his relationship to his own powers? They have become separated from him, and in this process, he has become alienated from himself. Psychoanalysts and religions, 50. Many therapists stress the fact that their patients present neuroses stemming from their faith clashing with their incapacity to come to terms with a God image and assertions in the scriptures that are totally out of touch with the Zeitgeist, German, Ashkenaz, whatever, the spirit of the times. These patients are gripped with problems and anxiety coming from, as Carl Jung expressed it, the layman's reactions to the paradoxes and moral honors of the Old Testament. Letter to Rev. David Cox II, reprinted in Indiger, The New God Image, 191-92. That's a book, y'all, The New God Image. I'm going to have to look into that. Let me highlight that. Yeah, I'm going to have to look into that book. Y'all are still doing that. Y'all don't have to sit there being all on the weekend. You know, you can send me a few dollars, man. I'm going to keep ordering books. I made the decision that I'm going to do it until the day I stop breathing when I choose. All the day things turn upside down, and y'all see lights, and the fear strikes you. So yeah, put my cash up there, honey. I appreciate it. Anyway, in this letter, Carl Jung speaks of a paradoxical God image which contains both the good and the evil, just as mankind. Since he shows wrath, injustice, and cruelty, yet as the creator of all, he is definitely implied in the created humanity and thus responsible. Man's suffering does not derive from his sins, but from the maker of his imperfections, the paradoxical God. You all know what paradoxical means, right? God in the Old Testament is a guardian of law and morality, yet is himself unjust. He is a moral paradox, unreflecting in an ethical sense. Now, the divine paradox is a source of unending suffering to man. Job cannot avoid, Job cannot avoid seeing it, and thus he sees more than God himself. It seems possible that he, Job, unconsciously anticipated the evolution of the God image, and God had to become man. God will be humanized, and man will be what's it called? Divine or divinized? I had to throw that in there. Excuse me for doing so. Anyway, Jung emphasizes that we have to analyze the God image as an evolving process. It is so convoluted and eternally discordant, that it has no R there. I can show y'all. Let me show y'all, because you know how it is with these punctuations. Anyway, get it out. Discordant, that it has created no less than what Jung calls a God complex. Let's remember that in Jung's early terminology, unlike that of Freud, who borrowed the term from him, a complex was first and foremost a constellation of psychological processes, and the latter were not systematically negative drives. That's why Jung, to distantiate himself from Freud's connotations, well needed, thank you, connotations of the term, later created, let me read that again because I know those sneezes can interrupt the mentality. Constellation of psychological processes, and the latter were not systematically negative derives. That's why Jung, to distantiate himself from Freud's connotation of the term, later created the neural term psychic constellation. Now, in parentheses, it says, see my book, La Prédiction des Gens. And in his two letters to Cox, Jung explains how the paradoxical image of God in the book, both good and evil, has created in us a dual and antinomic relationship to this image that has in turn been internalized as a conflicting constellation, creating deep stress and unending suffering. Now, the concept of the God complex came to finally mean an immature and inflated personality who takes himself as God and believes he can do no wrong, even when faced with evidence to the contrary. Let's note, though, that the spectacular evolution of this concept is yet another example of the constant shifting of responsibility from the deity to us human beings. A great example. Who's that knucklehead that got locked up having sex with men now, talking about he was a queen? You know what I'm talking about. I ain't mentioning his name. If he's locked up, he needs to stay there. The concept was at first pointing to a definitive flaw in the deity, mirrored in our psychics. And now it just means one more specific flaw in humans. Damn. Dog, man. Wow. Yeah, I gotta highlight that though. I gotta look into some of that. So right now I gotta highlight the book. Book La Prédiction des Gens. Okay. The New God Image. I'm gonna get that book. Look at that one. And I need to look up this word right here. Because that's a very good word. I like how that rolls. Yeah, and for those who want to know the word, the constellation of psychological process, which I think is a fabulous Word. I don't. All right, we'll pick that up tomorrow. Now, Exposing the Exposition 1851 and 1915. I'm going to read that later with the other two books because it is right at the end. It's just got about 3 or 4 pages, and we're going to finish that off after reading The Covenant and The Woman of the Mirror. We're going to read that at the end so we can wrap that book up because there's other books based on Tartaria and everything else that I really want to get into. So I appreciate y'all taking the time. We're at 59 minutes. Nothing but love and respect. My beloved sisters, I'm going to shout y'all out and get the hell up off of here. Snoo, Rondo, T. Hans, my beloved people, West Side. I hope y'all enjoyed that reading. I hope it didn't mess up too much with the sneezing and burping and farting and everything. Mikey Hill, Fishing with Camel and Joe. Hey, what's going on, y'all? I know that's right. Damn right. Gotcha, West Side. I've got my brothers in here. Original Lone Wolf. Oh, the family's all in here, man. Number love, man. I hope y'all was able to hang out. T. Hines, oh, man. Mad love and respect. I hope y'all enjoyed it. We're at an hour. I did my best to beat it, but I let the music play for a little while. So we'll be back here shortly, okay? And yes, a few dollars. Send it, man. I'm not going to stop. Can't stop. Won't stop. I'm ordering books. Man, I really thought that was a book, bro. I was like, God, dog, man. I was going to put it all in your face. I thought it was just one book. I ain't said nothing to y'all about it. I was going to be like, you see that there? You see that there? But it wasn't. See y'all later, all right? Number love and respect.